Well, hey there. My name is Amy. I'm the connections coordinator here for the Poplar Hill site as well. I get the opportunity to be a part of the teaching team. And it's just so exciting for me today to address our online Vitalpoint Church community. I never get this opportunity just to talk to you guys. And this is so exciting for me as we have live teaching happening at all of our sites this weekend. So I get to speak to just you. So happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you who are watching and part of this conversation today. If you're like me, Thanksgiving is actually my favorite holiday. Why? Well, because it's all the food, the fun, the togetherness with it, like the pressure of presents or egg hunts or all the chaotic things that can sometimes happen around the holidays. Now, maybe you differ with me and you're like, listen, Amy, I'm in charge of the turkey this year. So you know what? Blessings to you, but you don't have to worry about gifts and the other stuff that comes with that. You can focus on that perfect turkey meal, which will be such a gift to so many people. But maybe there's all kinds of traditions that you look forward to this time of year, whether it's maybe apple picking with your family or as you gather around that Thanksgiving table, you take time and everyone shares something that they're grateful for that I feel like everyone finds so cringy, but man, grandma loves that time, doesn't she? Or you have a tradition like a friend of mine. This is one I've never really heard of aside from her, but they all come to their Thanksgiving gathering with a vegetable that they've made in the image of a family member that they are grateful for. So go to the grocery store, hey, this squash kind of looks like Uncle Joel, and they make it look like that person. I feel like it ends up being a little more of a roast than actual honoring gratitude moment, but it gives a good laugh and there's a piece of togetherness there. For myself, as I've been thinking about Thanksgiving, and some of my favorite Thanksgiving moments was one time gathering together with my family at my parents' home and practicing shooting my sister's brand new hunting bow. That was so much fun, shooting things with my dad's BB gun. I don't know that it gets much more small town than that, but whatever your Thanksgiving traditions are that you're looking forward to this weekend, I hope that you enjoy those things. There's just something so special about this holiday and this moment that we have where we can hit pause on life and all the things and look at the life that we have, the things that we have in existence of gratitude. What are we enjoying right now in the season? What is going well? And that pause and that posture just does something to us. If right now you took out your phone and you started Googling studies on what gratitude does, you could find all kinds of awesome things of what gratitude practically does to our brain, how it actually physically changes the neural structures of our brain, and how even practicing gratitude releases these neurotransmitter hormones that are related to happiness. And so all these things relate to one another. And the world sees this. This practice of gratitude is not exclusive to the Christian faith. So many people understand how this actually physically affects us. And so you go into any bookstore and you can find all kinds of gratitude journals. In my daily planner that I have, there's a section at the top where I can write 4 pieces of gratitude that I have that day while setting my priorities, looking at my day, my scheduling, the things that I need to get done and tick off. For my family, we are big Survivor, the reality show fans. So every Friday night, we wait and watch it together as a family. And this season, actually, there's this moment that made me think of it during this talk, that they had this crab that they found and we're so excited to eat because they're not given any food to eat, of course, on the island. And so they're about to boil this thing in the pot. And this one participant, this one contestant, she stops and she goes, before we do this, can we just stop and just pray a prayer of gratitude? Gratitude to this crab for the sacrifice of its life, gratitude to the universe for sending it to us. And so they take this moment and they hold hands, and there's almost this piece of beauty and peacefulness as they gather together and send this gratitude to this living creature that they were going to find sustenance and life out of. But it was really actually interesting moment as we watched this with our kids as they were trying to sort out what's going on here. And it'll be interesting to see how this person's posture of gratitude may or may not continue as the challenges get harder, as you're hungry, you're stretched to your limits. What does that really look like in those moments? Because I think we all can identify that gratitude and thanksgiving, it is easy when things are going good. right? This weekend can be easy when you're just feeling like you are in a time of your life of abundance, of enjoying so many things. And in your singleness, you're enjoying the flexibility and the freedom that your relationship status gives you and what you're able to do with that. Or, you're in a job that you love, that you find satisfaction in, you're saving for the future, you're paying your bills, or you're in a relationship that you're finding a whole lot of joy and fulfillment in, or you're a student and you've identified, this is what I want to do with my life. And so you're headed down that career path. You're working so hard, or you're enjoying physical and mental health right now. You're in a good spot with these things, but that's not the case for all of us. And what happens when all of that changes? What happens with, instead of enjoying the singleness and the freedom and the flexibility, you're feeling lonely and hopeless and unwanted? What happens then? What happens when the job that you've been working so hard at, that you find so fulfilling for 20 some odd years, suddenly they're announcing cutbacks and layoffs and you're on that list? What does your future look like then? Who even are you as you've been doing this for so long? Or what about when your mental health comes crashing down out of nowhere? You have no understanding why you're feeling the way that you are, why it's so hard to get out of bed, or you're struggling with the internal anxieties and depression and hopeless feelings that just you can't even identify what's happening. What happens then? Or what happens when suddenly you or a loved one is receiving a diagnosis that's not looking so good? What happens then? It's hard to shift our mind, our hope towards gratitude in these moments where the things that we were so grateful for, we were enjoying so deeply, all of a sudden, it feels like they're just falling through our fingers. What happens in those moments? How can we genuinely be thankful in those times? Because in those times, it's so easy for us to slip into this place of wondering, God, where are you? Right? These good things, they're supposed to be evidence of you in my life, right? Of your approval, of your love and your kindness towards me. But God's presence and his love is not determined by our circumstances. In fact, scripture over and over again promises and reassures us that his presence is always there. He's committed to us because of his deep love for us. That it's not our circumstances that guarantee his presence. It's just simply his love and his kindness that guarantees that for us. King David writes this in a psalm. He writes many of the psalms. And in Psalm 139, he says this: "Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me." I love this section. I love it. And did you catch the truths that are holding here? That no matter where you are, no matter how dark life may seem right now, or how bright life may seem right now, no matter if you are being faithful right now, or if you're being unfaithful right now in a walk and a commitment towards Jesus, it doesn't matter where you are, the circumstances that you find yourself in, he is there. He is present right here, right now, in this moment. And these situations in our lives, especially when things go sideways and they're hard, and the things that we have gratitude for or thankfulness in or find hope or security in come crumbling to the ground, and we go to God for answers, so many times we sometimes feel discouraged, feeling like we didn't get an answer from God in that moment. Why is this happening? What's going on? Have I done something wrong? But rather, what we do find in that space, what we are guaranteed is not answers, but we're guaranteed his presence. And let me tell you, that is good news. That is far actually greater news than finding the answers to the problems that we feel like we have in this world, because his unwavering presence gives us the strength, the endurance, and the ability to keep going forward, to keep taking one step in front of the other, and to not allow the circumstances that we find ourselves in to define this moment for us. Recently, I was texting with a young woman who's a part of our Poplar Hill community, and she, like so many of us, struggling to find connection, find that intimacy with God, experiencing him in her life. even in her spiritual practices of trying to be more habitual about reading her Bible, journaling, praying, all these things, she was still feeling this disconnect from God. And I know I can identify with that. I don't know about you. In fact, there was like a couple months ago, I was literally like crying in bed to my husband about how distant God felt. Even though I know he's present, that feeling is like, God, but are you actually there? Help me to see that you are there. And so as we were going back and forth, she's acknowledging, I know it's not all about feelings. And she said this thing that's just been ringing in my mind ever since. She said, I just don't want it to be one-sided. And I could feel that in that moment for her. I know that feeling all too well, of feeling like you're doing the things and you're trying so hard and you're trying to lean in, but it still feels like he's far away, he's distant. And the more that I've thought about this, the more that I've pondered this idea of I just don't want it to be one-sided, the more I realize it actually is so one-sided. It's so one-sided, but it's one-sided on God's side. You see, he's done everything to extend himself towards us. The fact that I or you or any of us would even consider having faith is because of him drawing us closer to himself. The fact that we choose that step of faith is because he's deposited that ability inside of us to be able to even do that. See, God reveals himself to this great leader in the Old Testament named Moses. In the book of Exodus, in chapter 34, Moses begs and cries out to God to reveal himself to him, that he would see his face, that he would know him, who he is. And so God comes and answers and reveals himself to him, and he declares who he is, that he is merciful, that he is gracious, that he is slow to anger, forgiving, that he is just, and that he is abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Now, steadfast is not a word we use a whole lot. So help us to understand, what does this steadfast love that God has for us? It means that this is a kind of love that keeps its promises no matter what. That it is faithful, it is true, it is enduring, it is loyal, no matter what we have done to deserve it. Even when we are unfaithful, his steadfast love is there. He doesn't stop. He doesn't let up. Unlike our broken human nature, he is the one that remains constant and consistent because that is who he is. He is so very committed to you and I, to being close to us. He is very, very present. And even still, when we were rejecting him, when we were living in rebellion, choosing to do our own things, going our own way, he chose to take that step towards us by sending his son Jesus to come and to pay the penalty for our brokenness, so that we can be made whole, so that we could once again experience his presence, be aware of his presence in our lives, out of the great love that he has for us. And today, Thanksgiving, all throughout the year, this is the very best news, that no matter what circumstance we find ourselves in, no matter our wanderings, our successes, our failures, his love for you and I is steadfast. It is consistent, it is constant, and it is loyal, and it is not dependent on circumstance. The circumstances that we experience in our lives are not evidence of whether he is pleased or displeased. They're always evidence of his love and his drawing us closer to himself. I recently read this illustration that I thought was really quite brilliant. It's a professor that uses this every single year with his students at a Bible college. He gives his students 15 seconds that they have to look around the room and notice everything in the room that is yellow. And so puts the timer on, 15 seconds happens. After those 15 seconds, he gets everyone to close his eyes and he goes, okay, now tell me about the things in the room that are blue. And of course, there's frustration of like, oh, we just tried looking for all the things that are yellow. We want to, get that approval from our teacher because we can rhyme the most things off. And he says this to his students, that some of you are so convinced that God only works in yellow that you are missing all the ways that he's working in blue. I don't know about you, but for me, I find so often I have this predetermined way of where I think that my life should go or should do or be, and the way that God should express himself to me. the way that I understand his love and his goodness in my life. And sometimes when that falls short, I realize I'm actually missing the real ways that he's working. I feel like, God, where are you? And yet all of a sudden there's this moment where he shows me, I've been here all along, but you've been looking in the wrong spaces. Today, are we relying too much on circumstances, on the things that are happening or we're involved in, or things that we have or we don't have, and measuring that as God's approval of his presence in our lives? And we're totally missing the entire point. We're totally missing the way that he is working and moving. And so how can we shift our focus, our perception, our ideas of what God is, who he is, how he works in our lives, and become more aware of his presence every single day? Well, I believe that the key to this is in the scriptures that were read for us earlier in Psalm 100. I think that it's gratitude. It's thanksgiving. According to the Bible, this thanksgiving, this gratitude that we carry, it's so much more than this idea of releasing happiness hormones into our mind. And I want to look at this scripture, help us understand this. So Psalm 104 that was read to us earlier, and then we'll read 5 in a second. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name. Enter his gates, his dwelling place, where he is, with what? Thanksgiving. I believe the more and more I think about these things, the more I experience and practice these things in my life, that Thanksgiving isn't there to just make us feel happy, but it actually ushers us into an understanding of the reality of God's presence right here, right now, because he has not changed. He has not gone anywhere. And Thanksgiving actually positions us to be able to see where he's working in blue, not just where he's working in yellow. It opens our eyes to the dwelling place that is right here and now with you. This kind of gratitude, when we enter into that space, has the ability to change everything, while yet nothing around us changes. The circumstance is exactly the same, but so is the God who loves you with no limits. And the second part here for us, Psalm 100, verse 5, for the Lord is good and his steadfast love endures forever and his faithfulness to all generations. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Why? Because his steadfast love, his unwavering commitment to the promises for you and for me, for all generations, they endure forever. And it's not limited to this moment, this space and time. It's not limited to the people in which this book was written in that time, in that context. It is for all generations. It is good news yesterday, today, and forever. It is the only thing that you and I can ever count on, is his steadfast love. And that is why he is good. That is why he deserves thanksgiving. That is why that no matter the circumstances that we live in or that we can face, we can cling to gratitude and our hope that we have in who God is and who we are in him. And again, while nothing around us changes, everything changes in our hearts and our minds as we come into that understanding. As we cling to these things, it gives us the ability to stay consistent in life's highs and in life's lows. And if you look in the Old Testament, there's this little book by this prophet named Habakkuk. And he understood what it meant to rejoice, what it meant to give thanks in really hopeless circumstances. He knew what hopelessness was. He lived in a time and an age where God's people, they were all over the place, living in idolatry. There was vengeance and violence and all kinds of rampant injustice happening all around him. In the midst of it, he is crying out to God because he is struggling to see, God, where is your goodness? How are you good in this time and space in which they live in? And there's this back and forth as he wrestles with God on these things. He doesn't hide it from them, but presents it to them. And how many of us can identify with this moment? If we look at the world around us, the state of humanity, and we go, oh, it's never been worse than this. It's never been darker than this. And we struggle to see, God, how are you good in the midst of this? Or maybe you're exploring faith right now. And you're like, man, the world is in shambles. There's got to be something good, but I still don't get why is there so much suffering if God is real and if he is good like he says that he is. And in this wrestling, God points this prophet to the fact that God has always been faithful and he always has a plan. And his plan is always to bring us back to himself, that yes, he is a just God and he will take care of things in his own time, in his own way. He is unwavering in his commitment to us. And the book closes with this prayer that this prophet prays that's so beautiful. In chapter 3, verse 17, 19, he says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor the fruit be on the vines, the product of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. This does not sound good. But he says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, he is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's, and he makes me tread on my high places. Though the situations in our lives may seem so hopeless, they seem so disappointing, so disillusioning sometimes, because God is our salvation out of his great love for us. There is always a reason to give thanks. There is always a reason to rejoice. And this posture is not dependent on circumstances, but it is on God's proven track record of his constant and consistent extending love, grace, mercy through his presence that allows us to actually be strengthened, to be able to tread on high places, to walk with confidence and security that even though we do not know what tomorrow holds, right now we know that we have his presence, and we know that at minimum tomorrow holds his presence again still. His unfailing love for us. We can open this book and read countless stories of people that experience much more difficult circumstances and trials that we will ever know and experience in our lives. If you look at the history of the church, of people who have struggled, like truly struggled in war, in famine, in chaos and destruction, even people here in this world right now, where do we see the good news of Jesus moving most rapidly? It's in places where it seems so utterly hopeless, where evil seems to have the upper hand. Because why? Because God is faithful through all generations. The good news of who he is, it lasts beyond any kind of government structure, any kind of superpower in the world, any kind of highs and lows that we may experience. He is the one true constant. He is always moving, changing, and shaping lives. And if we would sit in these stories and understand that the depths of the pit that people experience, and yet the hope and the purpose and the joy that they truly did find, there was ability to be thankful even in those situations. How much can those things encourage us today for wherever you and I find ourselves, that God is present. And that is always something that we can be grateful for. As I've been thinking about this weekend, and even thinking about this year for us as a church, as we've titled this year, a year to behold. How fitting is this for us today, as it's been stuck in my head that for us, when we behold something, it means to look at it intensely, and what we behold shapes who we are, what we become, and how we experience the world. And I think for us today it's behold, the Lord is good. Behold, the Lord is good. Good in the very widest sense. Good because his steadfast love endures forever. Good because he is faithful to all generations. He is faithful to those who have gone before us. He's faithful to us here right now. And he will continue to be faithful long after we are here on this earth. And as we grasp the depth of who God is, it will stir that constant posture of thankfulness that moves us not just beyond this weekend, but to the entire year, of carrying this posture of thankfulness and gratitude to who God is, allowing that to shape and form how we live in this world. Because how many of us, if we're honest with ourselves right here and now, have allowed ourselves to drift into complaining? And it's become this developed pattern of misery, of an inability now to at all see any kind of goodness. And it is not at the exemption of recognizing there are hard things that we are going through. There are painful circumstances that some of us are experiencing right now. But have we allowed the complaint and the focus on these things to penetrate us so deeply that we don't feel like we can see his goodness anywhere? What would it look like today to take that first step, to behold that the Lord is good? That doesn't matter where you are or what you've done. He is good, and he wants to extend his love and his care to you through his presence right here and right now. Whether this circumstance you're finding yourself in is good or hard, he is steadfast in his love and his faithfulness towards you. So today, would you behold, the Lord is good.